Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm Sean Dominski. Today I'm sitting down with my friend Ed Fordyce. Ed Fordyce operates the Inspired Tribe, a group of people who are looking to make impact in the area. He's an operator of a real estate franchise. But today we have a very special program. We're going to dig into a little bit of his story, and we're going to talk about something that's not always brought up, which is the topic of addiction. And we're going to hear a little bit about his personal journey to recovery and give you guys some insight to know what it's like, what he's been through, and really let you know if you're going through this or if you know someone who's going through this, that you're not alone. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it covered definitely a lot. And I'm still in the real estate world. Operated a cool little franchise in Westchester, PA, and doing this Inspired Tribe thing, which is my little baby, and
right.
It's a lot of fun, and they both sort of work intertwined with each other.
Yeah, so let's start there. So you've kind of your story kind of has you hitting rock bottom, but then rising to basically a mountaintop high peak, and you discovered that wasn't really all that there was. And then later on, as you started sharing with people, we kind of found out that there was more to the story than this successful, real estate agent, team leader. You had a lot going for you, but there was other stuff going on in the background that not everyone could really see.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about kind of how you got to that point.
Yeah, sure. So I think, the best way to talk about this is to sort of start from the beginning, because I think the purpose of us getting together today is sort of to help people in the world of addiction.
Yeah.
And sort of remove the stigma and the shame of it, and also that it's a gift. So I guess I'll sort of try to tell my story as quick as possible.
Yep.
And that is, at 4 years old, I think I was, I'm the youngest of 7 kids, wonderful family, crazy Irish Catholic family. It was just a blast growing up. My mother drank beer, and I remember one night, I was like, "Mom, can I sip it?" And I was like 4 years old. So like any good Irish mom, she was like, "Here." And I literally remember that moment vividly. I remember like my taste buds were like breakdancing. So I don't think like somebody with a non-addict mind actually can remember that stuff. And I'll sort of joke around about it and a lot of it. But I guess, flip forward. I was a pretty good, athlete growing up, state championship pitcher. I was always the captain of teams. And that's part of I'll call it the disease or the disorder. Because on the weekends, at the age of like 13, I think that was the first time I literally blacked out and fell on my face, right? And
that was from
alcohol
drinking.
Yeah.
Wow.
I hadn't come across drugs yet. But I just I hung around those kinds of people, so I thought that was normal behavior. Got up the next day pretty banged up, probably went to baseball practice and lied to my parents and said I fell off the back of a pickup truck. And then, continued through high school, being a weekend warrior. But still elected captain of the football team. I was a very well-liked person. But I also knew, I remember seeing a sign in our library in high school that said, if you think you have a problem, you have a problem. And I just went, wow, like, what's that mean? I'm not sure what that's all about. So life progressed, and I got into the restaurant business. Oh, and let me flip back. In my junior year of high school, I was with my friends, and we went to some party, and somebody cut out a line of cocaine. And I'd never done it before. I don't even think I'd ever seen it. But they said, do you want a line? And I said, yeah, okay. And I tried it, and I remember that feeling. It was like the most unbelievable feeling I'd ever had in my life. And I didn't, it was probably 4 years later-ish until I did it again. But I always remembered how good it felt. I also remember in my senior year of high school, I tore my kidney in half playing in a football game, and I spent 2 weeks in the hospital, and they were giving me Demerol, and I loved it. I loved it, and I could, back then, it was 1983, I could manipulate the nurses into giving me more, and even when it wasn't my time. And I remember sort of going through what I know now was like sort of withdrawal. No, I was angry when I got out of the hospital because I couldn't get that anymore. But my life progressed, again, acting like the all-American boy on the outside. Go ahead, ask me any question you want.
Yeah, so the act. So you were the all-American boy, you were the captain of the football team.
Yeah.
Did the addiction fuel, like was that connected at all? Like did you feel kind of, did that drive you to overcompensate in order to hide the other stuff that's going on? Or was there any kind of connection, or was it purely just despite what you were doing, you were still able to maintain that facade?
Not yet, and not consciously at least. I didn't know that I was, I didn't know that I had a problem already. I didn't know that it was at its beginning stages. But what happened is, as it progressed, and of course, like any good alcoholic addict, I decided to get into the restaurant business. And I remember a good friend of mine who we actually got sober together. He was in the restaurant business, and he said, "Dude, don't get caught up in it like I did." And it wasn't soon after that I was caught up in it. I was drinking 5 nights a week, very heavy, and using drugs probably 3 or 4 of those nights. But, getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep. It wasn't really hurting my life yet. It certainly wasn't helping it. But I knew it was getting out of control, and I remember starting to make the deals with myself. Well, when I meet a nice girl, I'll quit. Well, that happened. I didn't quit. When I get married, I'll quit. When I have my first baby, I'll quit. When I have my second baby, I'll quit. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and more out of control and more physically ill. And at the end, the last 5 years, I only used alcohol and drugs like once a week. But it was very intense, and binge drinking, binge drug use. So I guess part of like my message is, and thank God I've been clean and sober for 15 years now, and what I've seen in those years is anyone from a homeless person to a sports celebrity to a recording artist die from this and get sober from it. And I guess something, and you, again, ask me any question you want, and anybody that's listening obviously can reach out to me anytime for help. It's in every family. It doesn't make you weak. It's just like if somebody has diabetes, it's the same thing. But it doesn't discriminate. And personally, when I get the call a lot of times from the husband that says, and they're in tears, saying, I think I have a drinking problem. And my question is, well, what makes you say that? And he said, well, I had too much to drink again last night, and I was screaming at my wife in front of my 2-year-old child, and it upset everybody. And my question always is, well, do you like what kind of fruit or candy do you like? Like, what's your favorite fruit or candy? When you eat that, do you overeat it and then yell at your wife? Mm-hmm. If not, then you probably got a problem with alcohol. And just from my experience, it's probably going to get worse. Mm-hmm. So there's a saying, like, once you cross that line, once a cucumber becomes a pickle, it's never going to become a cucumber again. Mm-hmm. It's probably just going to progress, and it can progress very slowly.
Now, in your experience, have all addicts react the same once they're drunk? Or let's stick with drunks.
Yeah.
So if alcoholics, so they all react the same. So this guy got angry and yelling. Do all alcoholics have the same reaction? Nope. Or what can happen?
This is the easiest way, like the clarifying question.
Yeah.
If when you drink, bad things happen, and that could be you miss work, you get in a fight with your wife, you spend too much money, you gamble. It could be 1,000 things, but it's basically behavior that you wouldn't do otherwise, and then you continue to do it. You know, usually the road is, oh, that's it. I'm never doing that again. I'm never drinking rum again. I'm never drinking vodka again. And it just, the behavior keeps showing up, and steady decline in health and relationships. And, you know, it's crazy because they say it's the only disease or disorder, and I'm not going to debate whether it's a disease or not. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering what your thoughts on that, if it was a disease.
I mean, this is my thought on it.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm talking to somebody that wants to take out Webster's dictionary and say, well, this says what disease is, it's probably not a disease. I think it's a mental disorder. Mm-hmm. I know there's some really cool new research that's just starting to scan the brain of an addict, of alcoholics. This is what I do know. When I put a drop of alcohol in my body, everything changes biochemically. My brain function changed. I honestly believed that I could have 2 drinks and go home. Even though 100 times prior to that, once I started, I couldn't stop after 2.
Right.
That's what I know. And don't ask me. It's just the weirdest thing takes over. And that's why I think it's some kind of mental illness, mental disorder, disease. Call it what you want. But I've seen it in myself, and I've seen it in hundreds, and I've seen it in thousands of other people. CEOs of companies that were sober for 35 years, right? Decided they could have a glass of wine, and they die within 3 months. That's just the devastation of the disease. And I think that's, this will tear families apart.
Some people have said that it's hereditary. Do you have a father or grandfather who also struggled with it?
It runs, rapid in our family.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I do think it's hereditary, but also they're the worst, if there's such a thing as the worst alcoholic or addict. They haven't had any addiction problems in their family, in their family tree. The worst alcoholic that I knew didn't have a drink till he was 29 years old.
Really?
Yeah, and I forget when he died, but he died very quickly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I do want to kind of, circle back to like people who are dealing with this. Out of curiosity, let's say you have someone's got like a friend or a buddy they're hanging out with. How do you identify someone who should have probably stopped? Who's telling themselves like I can leave after one or two drinks, and you're having a good time. They just keep going, and you don't realize that person is probably could possibly lose control or might be in a different state of mind than where you're at. You think everything's going well. Is that something that people should kind of be aware of, or does is that up to the alcoholic to let you know ahead of time?
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking me. The sad part is, doesn't matter what anybody says or does. If somebody is an addict, they are going to hide it. They're going to lie about it.
Yeah.
No matter how good of a guy they are, it doesn't matter. Priest, it doesn't matter. They're going to lie about it. The only thing anybody can do is pray very hard for their recovery, and ask them the question: have you had enough?
Yeah. When you were in the restaurant industry, I'm sure you were a bartender at some point. How good were you at identifying people when they've had enough, and what were some of the markers? Was it always obvious, or did you always wait till it was obvious?
Well, when somebody had too much to drink?
Yeah.
No, I mean, number one, like, obviously, I literally have seen people drink 14 martinis and look and act and talk perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I literally have seen people where they're talking fine. I would go answer the phone and come back a minute and a half later, and they can't hold their head up. Alcohol is a drug, and anything mind altering, just isn't good for you. So I think some of and again, this is just my opinion, and it's coming from love. It's coming from my heart. A lot of people say, well, 4 or 5 beers a night, and it doesn't affect my life. Well, I sort of, maybe not. It's sort of compared to that's like saying I eat 2 Big Macs a day, and it's not affecting my life. Oh, no, it is. Yeah, it is. It's just not good for you. Changes everything. It's a depressant. I'm not here to preach or to judge. It's just I like to tell the truth about things. And I hear the stories all the time from wives of oh, my husband just needs to grow up. He only had 1 DUI and it wasn't his fault. We have to realize, normal people in today's day and age don't get DUIs. It's not like a surprise thing. You know what I mean?
It's not like it's unavoidable or... Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, really, you have to be an idiot to have more than 1 drink or even a drink and drive today.
Right.
Rarely did I drive drunk in my adult active years.
Yeah.
But I almost froze to death in my car because I wouldn't drive, right? So think about that. Here's a man, I owned a business, not the smartest guy, but definitely not the dumbest guy in the world. But I thought it was a good idea in 10-degree, 15-degree weather to fall asleep in the back seat of my car so I wouldn't get a DUI.
Now, just that specifically, was the fear not getting in trouble, not getting behind the wheel, or was it not letting people know how bad it was?
No.
Were you hiding something?
No, it was all paranoia. I was scared to death. And when an addiction really takes a hold of you, it's absolute hell because you stop enjoying the high. You stop enjoying the buzz. You go into instant paranoia. And it's not fun, but you cannot not drink.
Right.
You cannot not do drugs.
So doubling back, at what point did you realize you had a problem?
I knew I had some kind of problem at a very young age. I would say probably as I matured into my early to mid 20s, I knew there was a problem. However, my ego, I can handle this. I can quit whenever I want. I deserve it. That's part of what they call the illness or the disease.
Yeah, because you mentioned that you got your drinking not down, but isolated to once a week, or drinking and drug use to once a week. So obviously there was something in you that was trying to cut back, trying to stop. And so you did identify like, hey, this is getting out of hand. At what point did you realize you had to go? You had to stop altogether.
Yeah.
That this was.
Here's the crazy thing. I don't know of anyone that made the conscious decision that, you know what, I've had enough. Like I'm just going to go get sober, or I'm going to go get clean. Usually there has to be some kind of event that happened.
Yeah.
And for me, it literally was because I had a 3 or 4 day binge that, my family had an intervention, and I did an outpatient rehab thing and listened to them a little bit. I think there are a handful of very good rehabs in the United States. Probably most of them aren't that good. I know the one that I went to, I was not ready to get sober, but I really think like 15 years later, they're not that good at the world of helping people get sober. That's just my opinion. But I stayed clean and sober for 9 months without a program, any 12-step program, nothing. And then I started drinking again for a year and almost died one night. I'm pretty sure I overdosed. I'm pretty sure I had some kind of near-death experience. And, when I woke up, it's what they call the moment of clarity and really the miracle. And I calmly just said, that's it, I'm done. I believe that God removed 90% of the obsession that I had. And then it was just doing the next right thing and getting involved in a program, being around a tribe of people these guys, they just looked at me and they said, hey, you're just like us. You're just a little fucked up. You just can't put booze and drugs in your body. But it's going to be okay. And I looked at them, and they were sort of like me. And they were, dads, and they were, business guys, contractors, whatever. And I thought, wow, maybe I belong here. Maybe I do belong in the sober world, and it'll be okay. So there's rarely like that logical, let me work this out. Yeah, you know what, today, yep, I just realized I had a problem and I'm going to go get help. I don't know that that's ever happened.
Right. Well, what were you afraid of when you said, hey, it's going to be okay, I can do this?
Yeah.
What were you afraid of?
The unknown, man.
Yeah. Like being sober was the unknown.
Yeah, being sober was the unknown. Like anything forever is a long time. That's why they say it's a 1 day at a time program.
Yeah, that's a pretty big commitment.
Yeah, and I just didn't know how to do it. And I heard something said that, for an alcoholic and an addict, when drugs and booze are put in their body, they become themselves. And I thought, wow, like that's a powerful statement. But like I loved that feeling. I loved the whole scene. I got sober owning a restaurant, owning a bar. And I think I was more afraid of like, well, what am I going to do? If I'm not drinking and partying and carrying on like this, then what am I going to do?
Right.
It's such a demented state of mind that I remember watching the Super Bowl, I forget what year, but watching the guys going, how can they possibly be playing this game on a Sunday? Like, I know with all their money, right, they were out getting whacked last night. Like, they must be really hungover. I thought that's the way people lived.
Right.
Like, that was my goal was to be what I was. A restaurant owner, the whole ego thing. And, be drinking Jack Daniels like Frank Sinatra. Just so, it's such a selfish disease. It makes us so immature. And, man, I'm just glad I don't struggle with it anymore. I keep up a maintenance program. But again, I hope somebody sees this today or listens to it today that makes a decision. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm done, man. I'm done. Because I've seen the other side of it. I've seen daughters tell their daddies on their wedding day, no, daddy, you're not walking me down the aisle. No, you were never there for me. No, you're not walking me down the aisle. That scares the shit out of me, man. I don't want to be that guy. But it will happen to anybody that has a drinking problem or a drug problem and they don't stop and get help. And that first step is just admitting that you're powerless over it. I cannot win. I cannot control that. And that's probably the biggest problem is you have to admit defeat. You have to admit that something beat you and will always beat you. And then the other part of it is, that no human power can restore you to sanity. Like you have to think of something, a higher power, God, whatever somebody believes in. That's going to carry them.
So one of the problems is that it's not just the chemicals and the drugs and the lifestyle, but it's also your ego that's actively fighting.
Yeah, it's a spiritual disease. It's ego.
Because I imagine, getting sober in your head, you had a lot to lose because your identity was wrapped around it. You're scared of loneliness. You thought the whole world was going to basically shun you because everyone else was doing the same thing to some degree. So, you had that. So you did have those very real, fears almost. Even if you couldn't really identify them at the time, you weren't sitting there thinking, well, my identity is around being a drunk. So
yeah. Again, it's so. It comes in many forms.
Yeah.
And when I told my father that I was an alcoholic, he was like, wow, he literally said, I never realized you hit the sauce that hard. So, part of my disease was making sure that I played this role, that I wasn't that person. And it's just a horrible.
Who did know? Like who could?
My wife.
Yeah.
Like
it was only those very close to you. Like your wife.
Yeah.
Maybe your kids to some
No,
extent?
they were too young.
Okay.
Yeah, they were too young. Thank God.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I never drank in my house. Never was drunk in my house. Was never drunk in front of my kids.
Right.
So all of those things again. It's like, well, I can't have a problem because I don't drink at home.
Yeah.
I don't drink in front of my kids. I'm not shaking. I don't drink out of a wine bottle out of a brown paper bag. Like, I'm sophisticated, man.
Yeah. Now, how did she feel alone in that too? Because it sounds like everyone else kind of was like acted like, oh yeah, he's a great guy, and she kind of knew there was.
Yeah, she knew there was a problem. But here's the deal: like the last thing a spouse wants to do is admit that they made a mistake and married a drunk or an addict.
Yeah.
And it's all you hear it. It's a family disease. It's denial, man. It's denial. Plus, like, I'm a good guy. Like, I'm a really good guy. I'm a pretty good husband. And there's that, well, he just has this little problem. Like, I remember coming home, like, that next day, and my wife's playing with our neighbors and the kids, and I remember hearing our neighbor say, oh, my God, is he just getting home? It was like noon. And my wife's saying, yeah, he's just got to grow up a little bit. I remember her saying that. I'm like, grow up a little bit. Like, I'm a junkie. I don't need to grow up. I'm just a junkie. I'm just a drunk. Right now I have cocaine, Xanax, booze in me. God knows what else. Because it would, I would have to try to normalize myself with all the different things and chemicals I was doing. I can't believe I didn't die. Like, that's just the truth. That's why I talk about it. That's why I still, go to meetings, because it's easy to forget how bad it was. Like, how bad it was the next day. My nose hemorrhaging, vomiting, just feeling like a complete loser. Just horrible, horrible, horrible. And that's where we usually end up. You know, I had a conversation with a friend of mine's husband, and he told me how long he'd been struggling, and I told him, here's the deal, dude. Like, you either stop drinking or you're going to be dead in 6 months. And he died 4 months later.
Wow.
Yeah. Super intelligent guy, successful. Again, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Our bodies give out.
So if someone is in that situation where they're with an alcoholic or an addict, I mean, what's the first step for them?
For the person,
For
like
the
the
wife,
spouse, yeah.
for the spouse, for the husband.
I would recommend talking to other people. You know, there's groups like Al-Anon, Alateen. It won't fix the addict, but it'll help you understand the behavior, and maybe give the spouse or the family member some freedom that you know, it will just help them, because there's really nothing they can do.
Right.
And maybe at some point they would have to make a decision if it gets bad that they just got to separate or leave or whatever it may be.
What are so you said you did like our interventions? Does that usually help? Is that like a catalyst that people should consider?
I mean, yes. I mean, try anything and everything.
Yeah.
I know I had two feelings at that time. I was really sad that my brothers and sisters were worried about me. Really made me sad. I didn't want to do that to them. At the same time, even though they were trying to help me, some things that were said to me, my response in my brain was, I can whip your ass in life and everything whacked out of my mind. So you're no one to give me advice. That's part of the ego, that's part of the illness, that's part of protecting it. So yes, it does help. I think it's a great step. I think that step got me in the rehab the next day. So yeah, I mean, it all helps.
But it sounds like it was still a process.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it a process, because like a process to me is if somebody wants to lose 20 pounds, like I can give them the process to do it. This is something completely different. It is, you know, the unfortunate part of it is you just almost have to sit. It's like watching a bad car accident. You know, I could probably name 5 people that I know right now that have reached out to me in the last year or 2 or 3. Just, I think I might have, I know I will be getting the call someday saying, dude, I got a DUI. Dude, my wife threw me out. I haven't told you, but I've been drinking really heavily for the past. It's a pattern. And, you know, again, you have to hit, unfortunately, there's different rock bottoms for everybody. I had my bottom. There's other bottoms where, you know, there's prostitution involved and everything else. I mean, I've heard it all. So if somebody's listening and you have hit that kind of bottom, like, don't be ashamed of it, man. You're not a bad person. You're just a sick person. And other people, I guarantee you, in the program have done that. And the cool thing is that, like, whether you went broke, got divorced, had to prostitute yourself for your habit, whatever it may be, we're just going to look at you and go, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like, just keep coming around us, man. It's going to be okay. We're going to help you love yourself again. It's unbelievable. That's the process. Right. You know, so, yeah, it's a nasty thing. I think it's so misunderstood. I think we know probably 10 to 15% of what we should know about addiction and the disease and how the brain works. And because to this day, I sort of giggle and laugh, sometimes painfully, of like, I actually made that decision. I thought that that was a good decision. How stupid. So, yeah, and it's in every family. Every family. It's connected to every family somehow, some way. But the good news is, and probably if you Googled, like, celebrities, not that celebrities are anybody special,
right,
but it's just that celebrities in recovery, you'd be amazed how many brilliant people are in recovery. And I believe I had a real cool Tai Chi instructor tell me one day, because she noticed something about me. She goes, I knew you were in recovery. She said, a lot of addicts, she said, I believe they have so much to give, and it gets stuck in them. And the only way that they can like soothe that intensity is with drugs and alcohol. And I went, wow, that's some powerful shit there. And I believe that. It's once an addict gets clean and sober, it's amazing. My best friend, he was 35 years old, living on his parents' couch. No money, no nothing, bartending job, doing great now, has an incredible business, beautiful family. Like, that's what happens. We put so much energy into staying alive and manipulating and weaving our way in and out of our crazy life that real life actually becomes easy for us. We have so much to give. It's pretty cool. That's why I always say my addiction was the best gift I ever had, that God ever gave me. I'm so grateful I became an addict. So grateful I'm an alcoholic.
Not to take it out of context, but I mean, I would think that you would hate that. You would hate the addiction. Yeah. You're running from it every single day. Is it that what running from it is kind of pushing you towards? You feel like you've been able to help people even more so than just addicts, but I mean, because you've devoted a lot of what you do over the last however many years to helping people succeed, whether it's in addiction, with addiction, or not, correct?
Yeah.
So
I don't run from addiction anymore. Like, I would say I run towards recovery. I run towards my purpose.
Yeah.
I run towards my mission, which is my purpose, which I uncovered, is to end suffering. Now, that obviously is an inhumane purpose. Like, no human being can end suffering.
Right.
However, I can have something to do with ending suffering. So, thank God, I have to still be smart.
Yeah.
I don't really hang out in bars. I don't hang around people that do drugs. I have nothing against them either. But, it just doesn't make any sense for me.
So if you don't mind, why don't you talk a little bit more about that whole discovering your purpose too? Because I feel like it goes hand in hand. Because it sounds like that's kind of what back to what I was saying, where it was like the alcohol was your identity, the drunk was your identity, and some of your anxiety towards sobriety was kind of losing that. It seems like you've replaced that with purpose. When did you kind of so this purpose of ending suffering? When did you kind of what made you kind of uncover that? At what point?
Yeah, what I noticed, and it was probably by accident, is that the more open and the more vulnerable I was, the more I was able to help people, which in turn made people more comfortable about approaching me, which made it almost real easy for them to join a company I was with sometimes, or to be a coaching client. I'm okay. I couldn't help people. This is what I know. The pain that I lived in and the struggles I had, there's no way that I could help people or help people end their own suffering if I didn't know that suffering, if I didn't know that pain. So I'll give you an example. Once in a while, I'll get a call. Hey, can you help my friend? They're thinking about committing suicide. Now, I have no schooling behind that. I've read a lot. I've experienced a lot. And I'll meet up with them and say, let's go for a walk and a talk. And if you still want to kill yourself at the end of our walk and a talk, I brought my gun. I'll blow your brains out. Cool? Like that I help someone in that state of mind know that pain, it's like it becomes a gift, because I know, and I think there's so much that comes with addiction, whether it's depression, suicide, whatever it is, the pain that we all feel, like it's the yin and the yang. I'm so glad I experienced that, because I know that because I experienced this much pain, I get to experience this much happiness now. Right? Somebody who only experiences this much pain, they only get to experience that much happiness. That's no fun.
Right.
So
what would you say is the difference between suffering and pain?
Yeah, I mean, suffering is clearly... Suffering to me, this is only my... Suffering to me is a choice of becoming a victim. Pain, we know pain's coming. And it goes in ebbs and flows, and you have your ups and downs. Suffering, I think, is always choosing to be at that low level. So it's asking ourselves horrible questions. I wonder what today's going to bring, as opposed to what's today going to bring. Suffering is not using our pain for good. It's actually suffering, and I know there's different examples, but suffering is very self-centered. It's a very self-centered thing to just keep it all here and not let somebody else know that you're suffering. Because of your suffering, they'll be helped. They'll be okay. So then it's just pain.
Right.
Then it's just pain. But suffering is typically a secret. Suffering is a cover-up. Suffering is not trying to be better or get better or learn something. Suffering is like that self-hatred stuff. Yeah, and I think there's a suffering is going at chasing things, going after things that don't really matter to you. I see that a lot in the real estate business. Like I see it with agents that are just built to not be salespeople. So, and it's like 97% of them. So what I do is I help them not be salespeople. But because of that, they do a boatload of business, and they're happy, and they're being true to themselves. I joke around a lot in our industry, and when I tell people how do you do your business, and they say, well, I make calls from 10 to 12 or 8 to, and I said, well, who are you calling? Well, in our business, for sale by owners, expireds, and so I go, okay, so you're a telemarketer.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. No, you are. What's different than you and a telemarketer? You're calling people you don't know to sell them something. How's your soul feel at the end of the day? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that if you enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
But if it sucks the soul out of you and you put on 50 pounds in the year because you're so stressed out by doing something that's most people yell at you, scream at you, hang up on you, you might want to try something a little different.
Right, and that I'm sure that has parallels in every industry, every job. Anyone who's in a place where they probably shouldn't be, they're going to experience that.
Another good point is pain is temporary.
Right.
Suffering is constant. So, suffering will never end. And a lot of times the question will ask, because it was asked of me when I was suffering, is like, who did you help? Like, who's the last person you helped? When was the last time you worked at a shelter? When was the last time you gave money to a homeless person? When was the last time you just gave of yourself? Like, do that.
Yeah.
Because this is like my belief, and I'm really, really. It's our story. Suffering is the story that we tell ourselves of why we're not who or where we're supposed to be. And if we are living in the United States of America, if we're able to get on social media, if we can get a clean drink of water, we have no problems. Like, you have no problems. Stop bitching.
Yeah.
And go do something. If one person has done what you want to do under the same circumstances, disabilities, race, economic status, we have nothing to talk about. Just go do it.
Right.
I'm not saying that those things aren't real or it's not tougher, but so what? Just go. Just go do it. Stop suffering. Stop allowing yourself to suffer. Come alive, man. Go fail a few times. Come alive. Go after what you want.
Yeah, I just had this conversation the other night where someone was telling me their story of what they went through, and it was a couple years ago. It involved unfair accusations and lawsuits, and then that kind of, long story short, put gaps in their resume, and it keeps coming up every time they have to apply for a job, and now they feel like they're unhireable. They can't get into they can't get into a graduate program or so, and it just keeps following them along. And I just kept thinking, like, yeah, that really sucks. Like, that was really unfair. But gosh, there's got to be something you can do. Like, if you got to change course, like this course, hit a dead end, basically. Like, there's nothing stopping you. Yeah. And when you hear these stories of people who just say there's no way out, and you're like, it's just hard to believe. Like, there's something. You can always move on. At least. And I understand there are people who experience real suffering, but like you said, I mean, if you can turn on the tap and get clean water, I mean, after that, there's not a lot more you need to survive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And somebody like this person you're describing, I mean, not knowing all the details, but I would tell them to just be brutally honest. I mean, I think the 2 job interviews that I went on in my life, both of them asked me sort of the same questions, big corporate crap. And one was, what's the most important thing we need to know? What's the most important thing we need to know about you? And without hesitation, I said, I'm a recovering junkie. Do we need to go further? And they both looked at me with shock, like, I don't believe you just said that.
Right.
But then their head tilted, and they said, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Because I know it's in their family. And if I'm the best authentic me, right. I don't want to impress anybody. Like, I hear some of these interview things. I think they're all bullshit. Like, be you, man. Just be the best you. And both of them, wanted to hire me on the spot.
Right.
And a lot of times something like that, I can say, hey, look, I'm going to be really vulnerable right now and tell you what was going on back then. But this is the truth, and this is who I am today. So that's what I would. Yeah, that's really cool. Any bad thing perceived bad.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, while you said that your addiction was a gift, it's still not something that you asked for, and.
Well, here's the deal. God gave us free will. The universe gave me free will. Right? I chose to do that line in 11th grade. Right? I chose to go after it when I was 19, 20, 21 years old. Like, that's on me. Like, I'm a human being. I'm a grown up. I got to make those decisions.
Right.
knowing that once it's in my body, I lost control of everything. Right? I'm still that person. You put a couple drinks in me right now, watch my behavior change. Mm-hmm. Right? So free will is given to us. But man, like, do I want to mess with Mother Nature? Like, this is the way I was wired. This is what was given to me. Now I know it. Mm-hmm. What do I do with it? Mm-hmm. You know, and what I do with it, and it's proven itself to me. That's why I'm very open about it. Mm-hmm. Is I want to let people know it can be okay. Yeah. And all walks of it, the priest, the mailman, the pop next door, all walks of life, school teachers, nurses, doctors. Mm-hmm. We all got it.
I think that's incredibly powerful. If someone wants to get in touch with you, mm-hmm. wants to contact you, yep. I'm not even going to say they need help or want help, but they just, something about this interview is leading them to want to talk to you. What's the best way they can get in touch with you?
Probably email coach@theinspiredtribe.com. Coach or Coach Ed? No, Coach.
Coach@theinspiredtribe.com. Yeah. Shoot you an email. Mm-hmm. Just say, hey, heard the program. Just wanted to say hi. Wanted to say thanks, and
give me a little story. Yeah. Of what's going on in your life, whether it's booze related, drugs related, not related at all, and if I can help, I would definitely help. Awesome. But I would say, like, this is what I would say, like, if you're reaching out to me mm-hmm. for yourself, like, I'm not going to reach out to Weight Watchers today, mm-hmm. right? Because I don't have a weight problem. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If you're reaching out to an addict, mm-hmm. an alcoholic, to see if you have a problem, mm-hmm. you have a problem, and just be prepared. I'm going to call you out on it. Yeah. Out of love. But again, like, I'm not going to reach out to Weight Watchers today, and I'm not going to reach out to Gamblers Anonymous today, because I don't have a problem. Like, right. So if you're reaching out to somebody, you more than likely you got it.
Right. Yep. Great. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Like he said, if you have any questions or want to reach out, it's coach@theinspiredtribe.com. Honestly, I believe that he'd love to hear from you. And if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Thanks.
Cool.